Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out Can't Stand Me Now, the Shipwreck of the Libertines, New British Canon.
Well, there's gonna be some trouble, I know, cause I've got no buttons on my trousers, and my pins ain't none too strong. Hurry up, Mrs. Brown, I can feel it coming down, and it won't take none too long.
Delightful.
Huzzah!
Huzzah!
After OK Computer, Britpop was dead. British guitar music had lost its edge. Travis and Coldplay were there leading the way, with Cast, Embrace and Stereophonics filling the gaps. It was anthemic, aspirational, acoustic, but lacked energy and bite. But then, the Libertines. Taking notes from the Kinks, Jam, Clash and Strokes, they enlivened the British indie scene. Singles like What a Waster and Time for Heroes, reveling in reckless abandon, Wildian lyricism, and tales about rock and roll Valhalla. But by their first Enemy cover, the band were disintegrating under a wave of drugs, arrests and punch-ups. This is New British Canon, and this is the story of Can't Stand Me Now.
Okay, I've definitely heard of the Libertines. I can't think of any of their songs. I think the lead guy, his name is Pete Doherty, is that right? But the only thing I know about them is, some troubles he's had, which I imagine they're going to mention in this. Interesting that he said, OK Computer, wait, what were the words he used? OK Computer killed Britpop? After OK Computer, Britpop was dead. British guitar music had lost its edge. It is dark. I could see how OK Computer could make that seem irrelevant. But the Libertines came in. Okay, I think we're about to rock out, y'all. It's sponsor time, y'all.
This video is sponsored by Surfshark.
End of sponsor time. The Albion set sail up the bracket. 1997 to 2002, Mr. Razcox, the Albion, and Up the Bracket.
By the end of 2002, Britain was the Libertines to lose. In October, they released their debut album, the Mick Jones-produced Up the Bracket, taking its name from a line in...
Mick Jones as in Foreigner? No, the Clash guitarist. Okay.
The Mick Jones-produced Up the Bracket, taking its name from a line in post-war radio sitcom Hancock's Half Hour, an allusion to getting a punch in the throat.
Oh, rubbish. Good punch up the bracket never hurt anybody.
The album was 36 buzzing minutes of punk pop bravado, taking the cool New York garage rock of the Strokes and reframing it through the lens of hyper-literate Englishness. His first single and title track delved into the dark recesses of London's nightlife. While the jangle Time for Heroes attempted to better the Lars, as Pete Doherty detailed his experiences in the May Day riots and reflected on England's cultural losses.
Fewer, more distressing sights than that of an Englishman in a baseball cap.
The UK music press was...
That's a good lyric. There are fewer, more distressing sights than that of an Englishman in a baseball cap. I've heard British people say you can tell someone's American because they're wearing a baseball cap.
The UK music press was in love with this band, a flagship for the exciting new wave of British guitar music. But already, the Libertines were falling apart. Initially, the band formed in London in 1997. Although they had various characters coming and going in the early days, not least the 70-year-old jazz drummer, dubbed Mr. Razcox. The core of the band had always been the dual guitarist-vocalists, Pete Doherty and Carl Barât.
Hang on, they had a 70-year-old drummer? Yo. Wow. Paul Dufour died at the age of 74 from cancer of the brain and lungs. The band formed, they needed a drummer. Their engineer-producer friend Gwen Mathias, a friend of Paul, suggested him to them. He left the band after 2 or 3 years, but in 2014 worked with Doherty again. Wow, he was around in 2014. Wow. I hope I'm still rocking out at 70, y'all. I'm not even close to that, and I'm tired. I'm exhausted.
The core of the band had always been the dual guitarist-vocalists, Pete Doherty and Carl Barât. Doherty was the dishevelled poet who loved the Smiths, Lars, Oasis, and Cockney skiffle group Chaz and Dave.
And your pins ain't none too strong. Hurry up, Mrs. Brown, I can feel it coming down, and they won't take none too long.
Hurry up, Mrs. Brown. I can feel it coming down, and it won't take none too long.
Barât preferred Bowie and Dylan, and was the more adept guitarist. Despite being drawn to each other, their relationship was riddled with one-upmanship and chemical romances. We had some kind of inner storm in common that drove us together, even though a lot of the time we didn't actually want to be together. We didn't really get on, but I was fascinated by ideas he had about himself and the country. I'd never met anyone like him. It was riveting. Initially a high-energy skiffle group with killer lyrics. Things started coming together in 2001, when their new manager, Bani Pushchi, convinced them she could get them signed to UK indie powerhouse, Rough Trade. She felt that with the Strokes' recent revolution in the rock market, signing to the label and the ensuing feverish praise from the NME, the Libertines could skew more towards the jam and buzzcocks and revive in Britain what the Strokes had sparked in America, solidifying the lineup with John Hassell on bass and Gary Powell on drums. The new songs impressed Rough Trade enough to take a chance.
So they started as a skiffle group. I remember when that Strokes album, Is This It, came out. I liked it, but from an engineer standpoint, it sounded kind of broken. If a band came into the studio and I tried to make it sound like the Strokes, they would not consider it good engineering, you know? I think the Strokes made a deliberate attempt to make it sound kind of broken, and that's what was great about it. Anyway.
With buzz building due to their chaotic live shows, including a support slot for the Strokes, the Libertines ended up on the cover of NME before they'd released any actual music. Coinciding with the Queen's Golden Jubilee and posing before a Union Jack, the Libertines stole it away from intended cover stars, the all-too-American Fisher Spooner. In interviews, Barât and Doherty would be witty, vibrant, while talking wistfully and at length about the good ship Albion, a metaphorical boat named after an archaic word for Britain that they helmed and was headed for Arcadia, where rock and roll was all you needed.
What? There was a lot of stuff in there. I need to hear that bit again. Okay. So the label Rough Trade liked what they heard, so they signed them. They opened for the Strokes. They got on the cover of NME before they released any actual music. How does that happen? They posed before a Union Jack declaring their allegiance, stole it away from the intended cover stars, the all-too-American Fisher Spooner. Never heard of Fisher Spooner? What's that about? What do you mean all-too-American? What does that mean? Fisher Spooner was an electroclash duo and performance troupe formed in 1998 in New York City, so they were American. Were they American? They formed in America. The group grew to over 20 performers, most of whom were dancers and guest vocalists. Wow. Okay. So the Libertines, probably a better story at the time. Okay, and in the interviews, they were witty, vibrant, making jokes, keeping things light, and talking wistfully at length about the good ship Albion. What is that? Albion is an alternative name for Great Britain. Y'all, how did I not know that? It's sometimes used poetically and generally to refer to the island, but is less common than Britain today. A legend exists in various forms that giants were either the original inhabitants or the founders of the land, named Albion. Okay, a metaphorical boat named after an archaic word for Britain. Okay, it's a boat. Oh, that they helmed and was headed to Arcadia, where rock and roll was all you needed. Okay, a metaphor for, hey, let's just rock out and have fun, right? Utopia.
It's where cigarettes grow on trees and all benches are made of denim. But the central twosome's competitive streaks were already beginning to show, climbing over each other to get the most attention. Most people fancy Carl more than me. For years I've been in his shadow, but now the worm has turned, and I'm getting all the quotes. Yeah, why the fuck do you always quote Pete? Every time you ask a question, he starts yapping. Despite no radio airplay, the band's first single...
Damn. What? That's competition, y'all. Probably not very healthy in the end, you know?
Despite no radio airplay, the band's first single, the acerbic swearfest, What a Waster, managed to get to number 37 in the UK charts on Hype alone. Their next single, Up the Bracket, fared even better, reaching number 29.
It's just like he's in another world. He doesn't see the danger on show.
But the album sessions
Nice.
themselves showed that the Albion was listing slightly. The band, unable to get on with initial producer Suede's Bernard Butler, replaced him with the Clash's Mick Jones.
And obviously deciding to work with Mick Jones wasn't a move of divine inspiration. Whose call was that? The entire band's?
I think it was Mick's idea.
Really? Yeah. How'd you get to know him?
He just turned up one day, and we thought it was just someone trying to get out the cold. Turned up in our house with him.
That's hilarious.
With he had a can of beer and a dog.
You know, he's got a little dance he does. So you know if it's going well if he's doing his little dance.
Their rock and roll lifestyle and argumentative
That's hilarious. I bet that's not how it happened. But that's a good story. A very British story. You know, the British do this thing, like this understatement thing, and it's so endearing. I don't want to click on the Libertines because I don't want to read ahead of this. He produced the London-based band The Libertines' debut studio album, Up the Bracket. Jones stayed on to produce the band's second studio album. Oh, see, I don't want to get ahead. I want to read ahead. You know what I love about Mick Jones? He's a dog person.
Their rock and roll lifestyle and argumentative nature began to creep in, culminating in the duo's first proper fistfight. By this point, Barât had moved out of their shared apartment/squat, the Albion Rooms. And while Barât was smoozing with his new celebrity mates, Doherty had acquired a crack and heroin habit. I tried to address it with him, but I'm sure he convinced me it was within his stride. I do believe I tried everything to stop it taking hold, but for better or worse, it didn't work.
Y'all, I don't think any human being can counteract that. They don't even know. They don't even know that the substances make them justify things. And so they lived in an apartment together, but Pete started the hard stuff. Carl started hanging out with his celebrity friends.
There's a famous instructional shanty on what to do with a drunken sailor. But what does one do if the sailor is addicted to life-destroying drugs?
Wait, what? There's a famous instructional shanty on what to do with a drunken sailor. I feel like what to do with it. What is? I feel like I've heard that, but I don't remember. Oh, okay, here we go. What will we do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? Weigh hay and up she rises. Shave his belly with a rusty razor. Put him on a long boat till he's sober. Stick him in a scupper with a hosepipe bottom. What does that mean? What's a scupper? A hole in a ship's side to carry water on board from the deck. Okay, what's a hosepipe bottom? Hi, former sailor here. Just wanted to point out that stick him in a scupper with a hosepipe on him is not waterboarding, nor is it spraying the offended sailor with bilge water, as I have seen repeated on the net. Whoa, it's beating the sailor on the hindquarters with a 3-foot length of hosepipe. Since there have been hoses on sailing ships, this has been a thing. The sailor sticks his head through the scupper, which holds him like stocks would. Oh, like that? And then the hose is used like a whip. It's quite painful. I know because I felt it personally. In fact, any U.S. sailor that has gone through a polywog ceremony on a vessel that has crossed the equator has. This punishment is less physically damaging than lashing and ensures that the offending sailor will still be able to work the next day, although sitting down is problematic. It also greatly reduces the chance of deadly infection since it rarely breaks the skin. Wow. Okay.
But what does one do if the sailor is addicted to life-destroying drugs?
Yeah. Okay. The first dissolution of the Libertines, 2003, Top of the Pops, Don't Look Back into the Sun, and Prison.
In early 2003, the Libertines seemed to be in full sail. Time for Heroes was their biggest single yet, making it to the top 20, and
Nice.
resulting in their first appearance on Top of the Pops.
Nice.
Can you walk now? You've got it all at the scene as it seems how much to burn.
At the NME Awards in mid-February, the band won Best New Band, and after supporting the likes of Morrissey and the reunited Sex Pistols, as well as having their own sellout UK headline tour, they had set their sights on the US, playing Coachella in addition to a few dates on either coast.
Wow. They had a fast rise, didn't they? They played on David Letterman? Wow. Okay, so they let out Time for Heroes. It got in the top 20, so they got to play on Top of the Pops. They opened up for Morrissey And the Sex Pistols, they're being validated by these icons. They had a sellout UK tour, rising fast.
Playing Coachella in addition to a few dates on either coast. The Libertines had even snagged a slot on David Letterman. But behind the scenes, they were travelling further into choppy seas. Doherty's deteriorating health coloured everything. His pale and skeletal appearance a cause for concern on top of the pops, while disputes and punch-ups weren't far behind. Doherty also objected to the Letterman song choice, which placed Barât centre stage, pushing the competitive bandmates further apart.
Dang. Yeah. When you have a couple of lead singers, it complicates things. Especially if there's egos and substances involved. I could see it coming. I could see it coming.
On Letterman we did I Get Along, and even though he didn't write it, it's still seen as Carl's song, and I don't sing on it at all, of course. I thought for us to do a song that we both sung on might have brought us together. Between tours, Doherty had been arranging small impromptu shows on the band's website. Things came to a head when he scheduled one as a goodbye to the now besqualid Albion Rooms, on the same night as Barât's birthday party. As none of the other Libertines showed up, Doherty played it solo, but took their absence as an affront. So when it came time for the Libertines to start their European tour, Doherty didn't show, remaining in London with his various temptations. Barât called the next day to tell him, unless he plans on cleaning up, not to bother joining them. With the Libertines touring without Doherty, rumours swirled. Having spoken to Carlos, it is true. He doesn't want to play with me in my current condition. There is no use moaning. I'm getting on with things without them. Fuck them.
Oh, God. Jeez, this sucks. Dang. Doherty had been arranging small impromptu shows. Okay. So like at a local club or something, they would have little shows randomly between tours. Keep them sharp. That's reasonable. But then he scheduled one on Barât's birthday party. Surely they had a conversation about that, right? Why couldn't the show have been his birthday party? Maybe he had a party scheduled and then Peter's like, we're playing this. Pete may have forgotten it was his birthday. So when none of the other band members showed up, Pete thought he took it personally. And then whenever they had a European tour, actual shows, real shows, big shows, Pete said, no, you didn't show up to my little impromptu show, so I'm not going to show up for the tour. So he stayed in London with his substances. Barât called him the next day to tell him, unless you plan on cleaning up. He gave him an ultimatum. To give him an ultimatum, things must have been really bad. That's unfortunate. At some point, I guess they realized they're just enabling him. Yeah, where do you go from helping someone to where you're unintentionally enabling them?
And fuck him, he did. While the Libertines were out touring in Japan, on the 25th of July, Doherty broke into Barât's London flat, stealing an antique guitar, a harmonica, and a laptop. Admitting this to Lisa Moorish, his girlfriend and mother of his newborn son, she decided, for his sake, to call the police, at which point he was arrested.
Wow. Yeah, those substances make you do crazy things. He broke into his friend's his bandmate's apartment, stole a valuable guitar, a harmonica, and his laptop. But his girlfriend and the mother of his newborn son, for his sake, called the police. I think she made the right choice.
On the 8th of September, Doherty was sentenced to 6 months in prison, later through appeal reduced to 2, and the UK tabloids ate it up.
Okay, that's a reasonable amount of time, but maybe not enough time to get clean. You know, it sucks. It sucks.
Barât was devastated that Doherty had done this, but did try unsuccessfully to withdraw the charges. He just wanted his friend to somehow get help. Amongst the drama, their standalone single, Don't Look Back Into the Sun, was released and reached number 11, resulting in a Doherty-less Top of the Pops performance.
Okay.
Heartbreakingly, the song nods to Barât and Doherty's fracturing friendship.
Oh, my friend, you haven't changed. Still looking rough for a living strange, I know.
Doherty spent most of his time inside trying to get his hands on a guitar. When I did get hold of one, it was unbelievable, because it had been 2 weeks or something, but it seemed like an eternity. I played Don't Look Back Into the Sun to myself, and I wept. I remember thinking when I played the guitar, I'm going to put it all behind me, and start again with Carl. I couldn't wait to play with him. Thankfully, the feeling was mutual. Barât met him with a hug at the gate when he was released on the 9th of October, with Doherty having been clean for the majority of his stay at Her Majesty's pleasure. Though the Albion had taken on water, it was ready to set sail once again.
The prison is called Her Majesty's pleasure? Hang on. Really? A legal term of art referring to the indeterminate or undetermined length of service of certain appointed officials, or the indiscriminate sentences of some prisoners. It is based on the proposition that certain government officials are appointed by the Crown and can be removed for policy reasons, unlike employees. Originating in the United Kingdom, the phrase is now used throughout the Commonwealth realms. The term is used to describe detention in prison for an indefinite length amount of time. Okay. I thought there was a prison called Her Majesty's Pleasures, which would be really, really dark. Okay. So when he got out, Carl was like, "Hey, buddy." And they got back together. Though the Albion had taken on water, it was ready to set sail once again. Okay? Things are looking up.
At least for a little while.
All right. Okay. CW Self-Harm, Can't Stand Me Now, I'll Take You Anywhere, October 2003 to 4, Alan McGee Harmonicas, and Go Your Own Way.
More so than on Up the Bracket, sessions for album number 2 were strained. Pushchi had exited as manager in October 2003 due to the dysfunctional nature of the band, replaced by Creation Records founder Alan McGee. Given that he'd previously been in charge of Oasis and the Jesus and Mary chain, he seemed well suited for the Libertines, a man who greeted chaos like an old friend outside a prison. In November, McGee set up Barât and Doherty in his house on the Welsh border, so they were able to compile their ideas. While what became of the Likely Lads was born there.
What became of the dreams we had?
It wasn't long before Doherty's addictions crept in, and an argument arose between the two where accusatory barbs were thrown, with Barât getting increasingly drunk on whiskey. The night's events concluded after Doherty went to bed, where out of drunkenness, lingering depression, and sheer frustration at the Libertines' precarious position, Barât attempted to cave his own face in with a sink. I just looked at myself in the mirror, and that's what kind of disgusted me. I was on my own in the bathroom, completely pissed. In this situation, I didn't know how it happened, but knowing I hadn't done anything wrong, really. And I managed to conjure up all this hate out of nowhere, and I had become a hated person in some respects. And I just fucking belted my face as many times as I could against the sink.
Holy crap, y'all. Whiskey makes you feel invincible. And angry for no reason? I can't imagine wanting to ram my face into a sink. Wow. It's a good thing Pete went to bed. So they got a new manager. The manager's like, "Hey guys, go to my place in the country, write some songs, chill out, away from the stresses of the city." They're like, great. But they brought whiskey, and they drank it.
The resultant wound would require 70 stitches to the face, bone grafts to his shattered cheek, and Barât went temporarily blind in his left eye. At the time, enemy reported he'd fallen while drunk. The Libertines entered London's Metropolis Studios in March 2004, again with Mick Jones.
Okay, Metropolis Studios. Metropolis Studios. They got an SSL console? Okay. And they got a Neve console? They got another SSL? Okay. Yeah, that's a legit recording studio. I can confirm.
For the sessions, McGee hired Doherty and Barât, a bodyguard each, to stop them from killing each other. On the first day of recording, an argument about a digital recorder erupted into fists being thrown, after Barât implied it was all about Doherty not being able to handle his brown. Doherty launched himself across the table and started pounding on Barât, the bodyguards having to intervene.
Handle his brown? What does that mean? Poop? Whiskey? Learn to not yourself. Okay. I think they meant alcohol. A lot of good the bodyguard did them. They need couples therapy is what they need.
Doherty launched himself across the table and started pounding on Barât, the bodyguards having to intervene. At that moment, I was seriously questioning whether the album would ever be finished.
It's good
Some
question.
producers wouldn't have tolerated that behaviour, and the recording session would have been aborted. But as Jones had had a similarly volatile relationship with Joe Strummer, the sessions went ahead. Before the Libertines got in the
So Mick Jones is like, this is normal. This is totally normal behavior. Good art could come from it.
Before the Libertines got in the studio, there was little in the way of pre-planning.
Oh, no.
And so when Jones asked what they were starting with, no one had any idea. As Can't Stand Me Now was the most finished, it was recorded first. It went swimmingly. We used the third take.
Okay.
You can hear the end of the take at the start of it. We left it in as it was appropriate.
Okay.
Ending fitting for the start.
And all that. The song's closure features a harmonica solo from Doherty.
Oh. That's odd. In a rock
Many
song.
have associated this with an interview where Barât had mentioned he gifted the instrument to his bandmates for Christmas. And as Doherty was now back being a Libertine, he received one too. But this could also be a reference to it being one of the items
That's
Doherty
right, he
stole from
stole
Barât,
it.
an event referred to in Barât's first verse.
Crap.
Light fingers through the dark, shattered the lamp into darkness it cast.
Doherty, though, was always convinced that Barât started the fracture by blaming it on his heroin addiction.
Well,
You've got it the wrong way round, just shut me up and blamed it on the ground.
Can't Stand Me Now had been written by Doherty sometime after the break-in, with some lyrical help from Mark Kedds, formerly of Senseless Things. I wrote that in Whitechapel with Mark. Well, he wrote a bit of it. Carl changed a few words around, but it was already written to play him when he heard it. On the demo of Can't Stand Me Now, it's just me singing it to myself.
His light fingers through the dark, he shattered the lamp into darkness cast.
But basically, I got turned on, I think, by the idea of putting the words in his mouth, making them so personal, so he's singing them back to me. It was difficult on my part not to sing the line. The original demo features some even more tragic lyrics that never made the finished track.
I read every review.
Like an indie rock version of Go Your Own Way, his lyrics were perhaps too personal, bitter and close to the bone.
I know you lie, I know you lie, I'm still in love with you.
During the last show of their 3-night residency at Brixton Academy in March 2004, they played Can't Stand Me Now as the last song of their main set, and Doherty, offended by his lyrics coming out of Barât's mouth, stormed off stage after the first chorus.
why suddenly at the show is he getting upset? They've already recorded it. He wrote the words. What makes it different in that moment? Maybe Carl really put some genuine emotion behind it. The power of music. They went into the studio without any material. Oh, there was little in the way of pre-planning. I've said it on here before, but that's a bad idea. Don't go into the studio without rehearsing or at least having material. That said, I heard an interesting quote the other day. Always leave space for God to walk in the room. Still leave a little room for, inspiration in the moment. So they recorded this one song and it went well. Pete even wrote some of it. The harmonica solo is hilarious considering Pete stole a harmonica from Carl. Very appropriate or totally inappropriate. Carl gave everyone in the band a harmonica for Christmas. That's a nice gift. Pete got one too. But yeah, Pete also stole Carl's harmonica. Doherty, though, was always convinced that Barât had started the fracture, blaming it on his heroin addiction. Yeah, I would blame it on that as well. Doherty wrote the song, but when they performed it live, he got upset about it.
It had taken 6-7 years for him to say it, to say the truth. Can't Stand Me Now. He sang it to me, and I thought, you're right. We've used each other, got here, but underneath it all, you're not my mate. So I kicked his amp over, smashed his guitar, and cut myself up. Though they would finish the record, the Albion would soon hit the rocks.
It's kind of confusing. Pete seems like a handful. He writes these lyrics, gives them to Carl to sing. Carl sings them, makes Pete upset. What are you supposed to do? Okay. An ending fitting for the start. 2004 Baby Cakes Reading Festival and Reunion.
Can't Stand Me Now was released on the 9th of August 2004. It was the Libertines' highest charting single, reaching number 2 in the UK chart, being held off the top spot by Three of a Kind and Baby Cakes.
Baby cakes, you just don't know how I like it down low.
Its parent album,
I mean, how can you compete with baby cakes?
self-titled, was released at the end of August and entered the UK album chart at number 1. And just like their debut, the album was warmly praised by critics. Said Anthony Thornton of NME, some of the most exhilarating and brilliant rock and roll of the past 20 years, destined to be glued to discerning CD players everywhere, from council estates to country estates. Britain was theirs for the taking, Arcadia on the horizon. Problem was, by this point, Doherty was again not in the Libertines. While he had tried to clean himself up with stints in the Priory and even flying to a Thailand facility to properly detox, he left prematurely from them all. The day he returned to London, he was stopped by police for driving a friend's car and arrested for being in possession of a flick knife, a supposed gift for Barât. Feeling that the cycle of abuse would never end, Barât made the decision to let Doherty go. As he wrote in his statement to the press, Peter is and always will be a libertine, and when he cleans up from his addictions, he will be immediately welcomed back into the band. What should have been a victory lap instead was an awkward mess. Here was what the press had been touting as Britain's most exciting band, having smashed album number 2, with a tour of theatres and prestigious festival slots ahead of them. And yet the Libertines had shipwrecked just off Arcadia, while Doherty went on to form Baby Shambles.
He got on top of the pops.
Bostonian guitarist Anthony Rossomondo filled the Doherty-shaped hole for the rest of the Libertines' commitments. By the end of the year, it was over, said Jeff Travis, head of Rough Trade. Imagine if they had played Reading Festival with a fully functional band. They would have torn the whole place apart. It was all set up for them to be the kings.
Dang.
The 2004 Reading Festival lineup shed light on how vitally important Libertine...
Hang on, let me see who's on that. The Darkness, The Offspring, wow, The White Stripes, Morrissey, Green Day, 50 Cent, Placebo, The Hives, The Distillers, Jurassic 5, Real Big Fish, Taking Back Sunday, The Roots, New York Dolls, Lost Prophets, The Streets, Dropkick Murphys. Wow. Supergrass. That's huge. And they could have been... The Libertines are right there towards the top. Right under Morrissey. Dang.
Shed light on how vitally important Libertines had been during their 2 years in the spotlight. Below them on the main stage bill were Franz Ferdinand and Razorlight, with Block Party, Kasabian, The Ordinary Boys, Futureheads, Cribs, and Kaiser Chiefs on other stages, all benefiting from the Libertines reigniting the British indie rock scene. Soon the Fratellis, Kooks, View, and Mystery Jets would also follow. But with...
See, I know this is about the Libertines, but I feel like the Strokes did that. You know? I feel like they were inspired by the Strokes.
But with their love of slang-infused wordplay and haphazard punk-pop jangle, the Libertines' clearest and biggest heir was the Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah, they sound similar.
Eventually, the Libertines reformed in 2010. Doherty and Barât finally getting back together to headline the Reading Festival, like they should have done in their prime.
Wait, what year was that? 2010. Okay.
And while What a Waster, Time for Heroes, and Don't Look Back into the Sun all show them in their raucous finery, Can't Stand Me Now is their essential track. It is the Barât-Doherty relationship writ large. All the bickering, fighting, makeups and breakups, encapsulated in 3.5 minutes. It is them at their best of times and their worst of times. A slice of Arcadia they never properly glimpsed. Thanks for watching. What's your favourite band to come out of the noughties British indie wave?
Y'all be sure to go to Trash Theory and like and subscribe. They make all these great music documentaries. I can't play it on YouTube, but I just want to listen to a little bit of their stuff on iTunes. Let's just see what comes up. Great name, by the way. The Libertines. Essential albums, up the bracket. Oh, they just put out an album. All Quiet on the Eastern Esplanade. Can't Stand Me Now is the first song. It sounds great. They just put out an album. Are they back together? I love it. Y'all, I just listened to the first song of their newest album. It was released in April of 2024, and it's pretty good. I love it. And I'm looking at the credits, and apparently Pete's back in the band. They're back together. This is great. And it sounds good. Let's just check and make sure Wikipedia is up to date. In January 2015, Doherty successfully completed his rehab. The Libertines released their fourth studio album, All Quiet on the Eastern Esplanade. On April 5th, 2024, the album reached #1 on the UK album charts. Yeah! Oh, that's great news. The band's only time reaching peak position was 2004. Well, that's fine. Wow. I'm so glad for them. This is great. I didn't expect this ending, y'all. I did not expect this ending at all. I thought we may have lost some of them. In a February 2024 interview with The Guardian, Doherty said, "Maybe I'm not thinking it when I write the song, but the first thing I think afterwards is, I wonder what Carl will think of it. Whoever I'm writing the song with. The honest answer is everything I write is for Carl." Buddies back together, rocking out. And it's these same 4 dudes. Oh, that's so great. I'm so happy for them. This is wonderful. I didn't expect this ending at all. Wow, this is great. I love this. I'm going to listen to that new album. And now that I know the story of them, it makes it more important to me. I understand where they're coming from. Y'all be sure to go to Trash Theory, like and subscribe, give them a view. And if you made it this far, give me a like and subscribe too. I'd like to thank my patrons for patroning. And everyone who's bought me a coffee on Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you guys. Thanks for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.